Okay, this is the 50th episode of Cutout Pin and the last episode because 50 is enough. I decided instead of reviewing three albums that I hate, or the chances are that I hate, I decided to just do a little shift and pick out a couple albums that I like and I don't really think a lot of people know of. So, well, excuse me. I know they know of them, but they may not give. They need to give them a second listen. The first album, I'm going to get to this one and take it out and get it out of the way. The first album, I don't have the actual album, so I have nothing to show you. The first album is called Motley Crue, and it's Motley Crue. Motley Crue came out on '92. It was the album that they did without Vince Neil. There was a big fight between Nikki Sixx and Vince Neil, physical fight during their tour, and Nikki Sixx all tacky and dramatic, and Nikki Sixx jumped off and jumped out of the tour and got on a plane and threw a shit fit and went home back to LA. And he quit the band, put out a really, really silly solo album. Motley Crue continued on with John Corabi on vocals. They did a really heavy album that sounded nothing like Motley Crue, and it was called Motley Crue. It was kind of like a new beginning for them. They didn't sound anything like they did in the 80s. It really doesn't sound, I mean, so much so that I actually recorded a few songs and sent them to a friend of mine that was living in Europe, and I said, oh, listen to this band, and she actually didn't think it was horrible like you do when you hear Motley Crue. She was like, oh, it's not that bad. I actually like it. It's very heavy, very heavy. There's no Vince Neil, so it does, and there's two guitar players because John Corabi plays guitar, so it has a very thick sound. It's just a very heavy album. It's a very aggressive, heavy album, and sounds nothing like Motley Crue, even though it's named Motley Crue. I love the album. It's a really great. It sits alone by itself because it doesn't sound like girls, or any of that shit. But it's a really good album. Trust me, you can get it for $1 in the cutout bin, even cheaper. It's a really good album, and it's just self-titled, and I would say get it. It's worth a listen. It's heavy, it's thick, it's dark, it's good. The next album is One Hot Minute by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I kind of wish they didn't use the Chili Peppers name. This album came right after Blood Sugar Sex Magik, which was a monster album. It was huge, and everyone loved it. There were so many hits, and blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, suburban teens were liking the Chili Peppers, and and it's a really good album. John Frusciante, their guitar player, actually, back up. Chili Peppers guitar player Hillel Slovak, who played on the first, I think, three or four albums, he died of a heroin overdose. So what did John Frusciante do after Mother's Milk and Blood Sugar Sex Magik? He decided to quit the band for a career in heroin addiction. So, smart move. And they ended up getting Dave Navarro from Jane's Addiction to play on this album. The result is, it's right after Blood Sugar Sex Magik, and it's very dark. Doesn't sound anything like that. It's very different sounding. It had a few, like Warped was a single off of it. Me and My Friends, Aeroplane, Coffee Shop, A Little Pea. This is a great album. Anyway, I don't know if they had really big hits or anything. I don't really listen to the radio. I didn't then either, so I don't really know. I'm sure it did fine. And because Dave Navarro is a good guitar player. He's just a different guitar player than John Frusciante. John Frusciante, to continue the story, John Frusciante eventually decided to quit heroin and go back to the Chili Peppers, and then they made an album called Californication, which sounds like the album that should have followed Blood Sugar Sex Magik. If this makes sense. Are you following me? So Blood Sugar Sex Magik, and then they had this little like bump in the road. Then they had Californication, which that fits. It sounds like Blood Sugar Sex Magik, Californication. By the way, Stadium Arcadium, all that stuff. It all fits as one giant piece. This is the one bump in the road. It's a great album though. It's a lot heavier. It's a lot darker than than Chili Peppers usually is, especially after One Hot. I mean, Blood Sugar Sex Magic, where it was pretty, had like a really funky, kind of heavy, funky, kind of almost like bright optimism to it. And this album is just very dark, but I love it. You can get this also in the cutout bins for like $1.99. It's a really good album. Um, I'm not sure. I don't really know that many people that like Chili Peppers, so I don't really know where this stands as far as like the catalog. So I would say that. The next album of bands doing side odd projects is this album. It's called The Passengers. And this is by U2. What U2 did was during their whole period after Octung Baby and Zeropa, where they were trying to actually be interesting, and they did away with the U2 name, and they got Brian Eno to not just produce the album, they got Brian Eno to join and be an actual contributor as far as like songwriting and everything. Word has it that this album was the result of The Edge and Brian Eno mostly, which kind of makes sense because there's not the like heavy-winded pontification that Bono usually does. Like there's a lot of instrumentals on it, so I like this album a lot. It's probably my favorite of their albums because I'm not a big U2 person. It's called Original Soundtracks Volume 1. There's no Volume 2. There's Volume 1, and they basically, what they did was they made up films in their head, and then they wrote soundtracks, or soundtrack songs, like theme songs to films that never existed. It was a pretty cool, very interesting idea. I like the album a lot. This is the album that's famous for, the one single off of it was Miss Sarajevo with Luciano Pavarotti on vocals, and I love his voice, so it's really good. It's very interesting. They ended up going back to being U2 and putting out some horrible albums like U2 is known for. But actually no, they did pop after this, which I actually liked. They have a weird career because hated them. Then they did like four or five albums that I think were great, and then I hate them again. So anyway, this was smack dab in the middle of all that. They were trying new things and trying different sounds and different styles, and I respect that. And they were trying so many different things. I think they kind of alienated a lot of the U2 diehards, which I think is a great thing. And they even added a member and changed their name. That's how much they were trying to, do the Sgt. Pepper thing. All right, so that's this. The Passenger Original Soundtracks Volume 1. I would say definitely pick it up. You can probably also find this in a cutout bin. The last album, and this is the most controversial one. Boom! It's Lulu. Everyone and their mother is trashing Lulu. This is the album that has Metallica teaming up with Lou Reed. Now, I'm a huge Lou Reed fan. Anyone who knows me knows that. And with Metallica, I like the album. Like lyrically, it's very Lou Reed, very kind of like, living on the streets of New York. And even though New York's very Disney now and very not New York, it's just, New York is just not as cool as it was 15 years ago. It's just nothing. I mean, you go to Times Square and you're like, what the fuck is this? It's like you're at a Gap commercial. It's just Heidi Klum is everywhere. New York is just not cool anymore. But Lou Reed was around when it was. And this album had so much potential because I love Lou Reed. It could have been, and there's like 10 songs on a double disc, so that was another thing that I like. I like instrumentals, and I like when they lengthen. Like I think there's like a 20-minute song. Yeah, Junior Dad's 19 minutes and 29. The songs aren't that great. They sound like they could be great. It's just that the problem is Lou Reed's voice is good, and his harmony and lyrics are good. I like. But then Metallica does nothing but be Metallica. They don't like. in the last few years, like they've been doing stuff with orchestras and you know, so I was thinking, you know, okay, Metallica's really gonna go step outside and you know, I was all for when Metallica was changing their stuff back in 10 years ago. You know, I even liked the Saint Anger album, which nobody likes. I like it. So I liked the fact that they were doing different stuff, and I was hoping that they would branch out and try something different, but they're not. It just sounds like Lou Reed is strumming an acoustic guitar and singing over a Metallica album. It really does. Because Metallica doesn't sound like they didn't skip a beat. They sound exactly like Metallica, like you know, Metallica. Um, which is a shame because I know they could have done more. I think if they sat back and listened to this stuff, I don't know, let it permeate for like a year, and then they were like, oh, I don't know, maybe they're trying to please their fans, but their fans seem to not be pleased at anything that they do nowadays, so they should just fucking, if I was in Metallica, I would just say, we should just do what the fuck we want, because our fans, it's like Howard Stern fans, they just hate everything they do anyway, so just do whatever the fuck you want. Your fans suck. Anyway, I like a couple Metallica albums. I like Kill 'Em All. I did say I liked Saint Anger. I don't care. I like the album with Sperm on the cover, Loaded. Big stress. Just kidding. But you know, there's a couple albums by Metallica that aren't that bad. I like pretty much close to everything I've heard from Lou Reed. I love Metal Machine Music. I saw a review, an online review of this album where he trashed the opposite side. They said Metallica rocks, but Lou Reed's his old fucking man. And I'm like, Lou Reed fucking been there, done that, lived it, fucked it, did it, and came back. You know, and is still alive. And you know, Lou Reed did shit that would have made Metallica break up 10 years ago. Metallica, if you don't remember, was the band that needed to hire a therapist to keep them together, and then they made a movie about how fucking wussy they are. Lou Reed didn't go to a therapist, you know. So, yeah, that's not rock and roll. You don't go to a fucking therapist, so get over yourselves. Um, you know, Lou Reed fucking, he lived it, fucked it, sucked it, actually, literally. um, you know, addicted to everything and everybody and part of the Warhol scene and just writing amazing albums after amazing albums. Just listen to the Transformer album or any of the Velvet Underground albums and then shut up. Metallica is kind of, you know, they can be okay. But, you know, so that guy that I saw on YouTube is just a fucking douche because he is saying, you know, that it was Lou Reed's fault that the album wasn't that good. And I say no, it's Metallica, because they sound exactly like Metallica. They didn't change themselves or try experimenting or doing anything new. They just did exactly the same thing. I want to like this more than I do, so, you know, it's on my iPod. I keep listening to it. I have, like, a lot of, like, more experimental Lou Reed albums. Like Metal Machine. I don't have any Metallica albums. I do have Kill 'Em All on my iPod. But as far as like Lou Reed, I have like 6 or 7 albums, including Metal Machine Music, which the guy I saw on YouTube making fun of, and I'm like, idiot dude, if it wasn't for Metal Machine Music, there would be no interest in industrial, quote unquote, industrial music, i.e. Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, all that shit. You know, so, and yeah, he's like, all Metal Machine Music sounds like is him just banging on metal. Duh, motherfucker, that's what he is. He's just clanging on metal. He's with pipes and shit and overdubbing and making noise. I happen to like noise, so I think the Metal Machine Music album is great. Anyway, au revoir. This is it. It's that's a weird comment to end my career with cutout pain, because I'm not going to do this again. I'm tired of embarrassing myself.